Good evening, everybody. This is the Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021 regular town council meeting for the town of Scarborough, Maine. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is roll call. Tony?
Counselor Pucci,
Here.
Counselor Anderson,
Here.
Counselor Katarina,
Here.
Counselor Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Hamel,
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 is general public comments. Anybody who'd like to make a comment of items that are not on the agenda? Anybody in the live crowd like to make comments that are not on the agenda? And anybody in Zoom that would like to make comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I will close general public comment. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes from the October 18th, 2021 special meeting and the October 20th, 2021 regular meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Tony?
Counselor Pucci,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Item number 6 is adjustments to the agenda. I don't believe there are any. Item number 7 is treasurer warrants. I signed them before we sat today. And item number 8 is our town manager's report. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a number of things to mention to the council and to the public. First and foremost, I'm pleased to make the announcement tonight that I have extended a conditional offer of employment to Mark Holmquist to be our next police chief. Mark has accepted that offer and we're going through some of the post-offer testing. We subject obviously law enforcement agents to a pretty good battery of tests and evaluations. I have no doubt that he'll pass that with flying colors, but nonetheless, we're certainly going through that level of due diligence. Just quickly, by way of background, Mark's a 24-year veteran of the Maine State Police. Among his many accomplishments, he's kind of risen very quickly and consistently through the ranks in those 24 years. But along the way, he's served as the lieutenant of the Major Crimes Unit, which is a very high stature position. He's the one in many cases in these major crimes speaking on behalf to the media. So he really conducts himself very well composed. And then currently he is the troop commander for Troop A. This is York County. So very pleased with Mark's background. And he's scheduled to start December 6th. I'll certainly have him come and introduce himself at a meeting as soon as we can. I'd be remiss not to recognize Dave Grover, who's stepped in and done really tremendous job in the interim, along with the rest of the command staff. They really stepped up from my perspective, and I certainly expect from the public's. It's been seamless. They continue to provide excellent quality service and again, very thankful for Deputy Chief Grover for helping us out in the interim. A couple of other matters. I want to make the public aware that the town has received an exemption request for a growth management ordinance. This is a new process the council put in place just last spring. So frankly, the process doesn't have, there's really no defined process and no timeline. So that's part of what I think we need to do and evaluate in the near term, figuring out how we're going to receive this, evaluate it and respond. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. This does come from Crossroads Holding. This is the developer of the Downs property, and it's specific to the downtown portion of that project, which is interesting. And I think their timing certainly has a lot to do with the downtown committee completing its work. And so it'll be interesting over the next several months, I suspect, how the council deals in response to this request. So I'm interested in working with the council about that and through that. Related to that, we're also interested in getting some consulting support to help us in part to evaluate this proposal, but we have some other needs. Finance Committee has been talking for the last several months about some kind of long-term strategic financial planning around our TIF districts and also capital items. And so there's a number of different consulting needs that I think we're trying to evaluate. First and foremost, it's really preparing ourselves and getting experts to assist us in evaluating this proposal and responding appropriately. We expect that there'll be some details in a month or so in that regard in terms of a consultant and the scope of work. We've also scheduled a workshop on December 1st. Forgive me for getting ahead of the council, getting reorganized, but the Maine Turnpike Authority is interested in re-engaging the member communities in the Gorham Connector. This is a limited access highway, essentially, that would connect Route 95, I-95 to the Gorham Rotary, if you will. Most of the path is not exactly determined, but it's certainly true that most of that will exist within Scarborough. And so we play a key role in that. We and past councils and staff have been heavily involved in those discussions. They've been dormant for the last 2 or 3 years. And so the Turnpike Authority wants to kind of reinvigorate that discussion. We thought the best place is to start with a workshop to get kind of everyone up to speed in terms of what's happened and what the next steps are. So again, December 1st, I do have some detailed information I'll be supplying and providing out to the public and the council in advance of that. And I guess lastly, I just want to congratulate the voters in town. Really a great turnout. You'll hear later in the agenda from the town clerk in terms of voter participation. I want to also congratulate the candidates, namely, Chairman Johnson and Councillor Hamel being reelected, and I'm pleased to work with Councillor Seither in the future.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for Tom before we move on? None? Okay. Great. Order number 21093 is an act on the request for reconsideration of order number 21079, second reading on the proposed amendments of chapter 405, the Town of Scarborough zoning ordinance, section 9, performance standards, 01, utility scale solar energy systems. Just for some quick background information, we passed this at our last council meeting at second reading. There was a minor amendment that we overlooked. So I'm going to ask for a motion of reconsideration. And essentially, we're just going to reset the clock and do it all over again. But this time, somebody's going to offer up the amendment. So with that, do I have a motion?
Do you want the motion to reconsider?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you going to present it or I will? I move to reconsider.
Good.
Second.
Perfect. So it is now back on the floor, just like it was before.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. As detailed in this nice step-by-step email you wrote me earlier. Any discussion on reconsideration? No? A vote to reconsider, Tony?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We have now voted in the affirmative to reconsider. It is on the floor. Are there any discussions? Or actually, let's make this easy. Anybody like to offer up the amendment?
I'll offer it up. Yeah, so moved.
As you also outlined in this detailed email. So it's actually not on the floor yet. So moved. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I don't need a vote on that because that just puts it on the floor. Okay, now the main motion's on the floor. Would somebody please, for the love of Pete, offer up this amendment?
Offer up what?
The amendment that we missed.
Oh,
I can offer. it.
Councilor
Okay,
Cucci.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd like to offer an amendment as included in our packet on, it's identified as section 9, page 1. And it relates to the dimensional requirements, the setbacks for utility scale energy systems.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second on the?
second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment? No, with that, we're going to vote on the amendment only. Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina.
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Jay, how are we doing? You good now? Are we good this time? Okay. Yep. Okay, I am going to forego discussion and just call a motion on the main motion as amended. Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Katarina.
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Next is order number 21094. It's an act on the names posted to the various committees and boards as recommended by the Appointments and Negotiations Committee at the Town Council meeting on October 20th, 2021. And the motion will be made by Mr. Hamel.
Yes, we'll make a motion to read these names into the record for appointments to various committees, and I'll read through those now.
Yep.
For Coastal Waters and Harbor Committee, move Darren Granada from first alternate to full voting member, term to expire 2023, and move Alfred Falzone to first alternate, term to expire 2022. The Planning Board, appoint Karen Shoup as first alternate, term to expire 2024, and Chad Reed as a second alternate, term to expire, thank you, term to expire 2022. We are firing on all cylinders.
We are.
Shellfish Conservation Commission, move Noah Nygren from first alternate to full voting member with a term to expire 2022, and appoint Darren Granada as first alternate with a term to expire 2022. And finally, Zoning Board of Appeals, appoint Christine Snow as full voting member, term to expire 2024, and appoint Michelle Stevenson as first alternate, term to expire in 2023.
Thank you. And can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Nygren, did you want to speak on this or something else? Something else. Okay, good. Any discussion? None? With that, Tony?
Counselor Pucci?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Order number 21095 is a first reading and to schedule a public hearing and second reading regarding the proposed Ninth Amendment to the contract zone from KDK Realty LLC. This is brought forth by the applicant. Before we have the applicant come up, is there anybody in the member of the public that would like to speak to this? Anybody? Go ahead and just have over there at the podium and state your full name and address, please.
Good evening. Noah Nygren, 16 Phillip Street. I'm one of Scarborough's newest property taxpayers, but I've been a resident of this town since I was born in '95. I first want to thank the town council for the hard work on the growth management ordinance. When a variety of these massive complexes flew up out of nowhere, many of us figured out in a hurry that growth is ruining this once convenient town. I am massively unsatisfied with the inappropriate and reckless growth that is being foisted upon me, and this GMO came out before I even knew we needed it. So well done, and I do mean that. If this was a city, then dense population and rapid growth would be appropriate. This is a town, that is what we the homeowners signed up for, and dense population is not appropriate here. Retroactive backfilling of dense population is also not appropriate here. I am proactively asking my town council to prepare to reject this contract zone amendment. Returning to the GMO, this contract zone amendment would add pressure on the town council to make a GMO exception, as the other developers are already gobbling up every available growth permit and more. When the time comes to enforce the new GMO, I fully expect my town council to stand up tall and hold a hard line at 144 that is not to be crossed, with the rationale that per your surveys, this town is growing inappropriately fast. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Every time the town permits another building and increases population, it is my quality of life that is diluted and degraded. Traffic is severely impeded by the competition for road space. Therefore, it is detrimental to add more population while the supply of road space remains pretty much constant. We, the taxpayers, don't want more competition for road space. We want less competition for road space. Driving here becomes more inconvenient every year. Town Council, I request you use this rationale to resist growth because rapid, dense development within this town is not a net benefit to the public. It is a net detriment to the public. Respectfully, I do not concur with you deciding otherwise on my behalf. I am running long, so I will debunk the claimed benefits to the public during the public hearing. I would like to conclude by repeating what I believe more than 50% of us want. I want to live in a town, not a village, not a city. We are already surrounded by other cities that residents and developers can flock to if they prefer a high density setting. This is a town and we demand a less crowded and more convenient lifestyle than what can be found in a city. Thank you for your valuable time and consideration. I'll be back.
Thank you, sir. Are there any others in the live audience that would like to speak? And are there anybody in Zoom that would like to speak? With that, I believe there's the developers like to make a presentation. Are you guys going to make it in person here or?
Good evening. My name is Rick Meek. I'm with Teradyne Consultants. I'm the civil engineer with the project. The attorney for the project, Bill Fletcher, is on Zoom. He'd like to make some comments, and I have some slides to show during his presentation.
Okay, are the slides in our packet? Is it the same? And if they're not, you're going to have to email them. I believe I have to show them on Zoom, correct?
Okay, I can do that.
Yep. So if Bill wants to make the comments first, in the meantime, I can help you shoot an email to me and then I can pull them up very quickly.
Sure.
Okay. So Bill, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right, great, thank you. I'm Bill Fletcher. I'm the attorney for the applicant, KDK Realty. And as described in detail in your packet, we're here tonight to request the approval of the first reading of the contract zone, which is the 9th Amendment to the contract zone, and to schedule a public hearing and a second reading. So I'll just do a brief overview of the 9th Amendment and also talk about the public benefits for a moment. And then here with there in person with you is Rick Meek with Teradyne Consultants, Dave Yeton with KGI Properties, and also Ben and John Devine of Devine Capital. And we're here tonight to answer any questions you may have. So just by way of background, and some of this is repetitive to, I know some presentations we've given in the past, but quite a bit of time.
Bill, before you jump into it, do you want the presentation up? I'm sorry for cutting you off. I just want to make sure.
It's really, no, thank you. It's really just two images just to give an overview of, what the project is, the 48 units, the 2 buildings to be built on the vacant lots. There's 2 separate images. One is a site rendering and the other is an aerial shot. So if Rick wants to.
Yeah, he's trying. Rick, did you email? Did you send the email?
Yes, it should be coming through.
Okay. You might be in my spam folder. No. Do you have it as town? And I typed it in, so it's my fault. It is town council live stream at Gmail.
You know
No,
what?
that's my problem. It's town council stream at Gmail.
I'll need the, I think I'll need the password for the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. All right, Bill, keep going. I'll deal with this.
Sure. Okay, great, thank you. So just by way of background, this contract zone, a lot of work has gone into this, which is why we're up to the 9th Amendment now. The contract zone was established back in 2007. It was at the time when this whole area was being designed and structures and built up to really accommodate, growth and business. The first development was the Cabela's site, and then, nearly 10 years later, the development of the Beacon property, which was the 8th Amendment. This 9th Amendment is very much like the 8th Amendment in that it provides relief from the density requirement in the Higas Parkway District and relief from the mixed use requirement. And it also provides that to the extent necessary, and in a given year, if the annual allotment for growth permits isn't adequate, that any additional growth permits needed would be exempted from the growth management ordinance. So that's really sort of mechanically what the 9th Amendment does. And again, that's much like the 8th Amendment. This project is, again, it's building out the 2 remaining lots at the Beacon site. They're 2 vacant lots. It'll be 2 buildings with 24 units each, much like in design and nature of the existing buildings that are there. That project itself has been tremendously successful. And so we're really excited about reaching this final phase with the build out of these vacant lots. In terms of public benefits, I mean, there are obviously the benefits associated with economic growth and the types of tenants that are there at these buildings and the significant support they provide to area businesses, and also helping to attract really the light commercial and mixed use that is, sought within this zone. In addition, there are direct financial payments to the town, the largest being the $250,000 payment to the Affordable Housing Fund. There's also 2 charging stations, electrical charging stations for electric cars that would provide 4 hookups for 4 cars to charge. There's a $10,000 payment to the town's rideshare program and transportation initiatives. And also originally we had included a public easement to the extent necessary to build out a sidewalk. My understanding is a public easement isn't needed, just given the width of the right of way of Higas Parkway itself. But that still is there to the extent it's needed. A public easement would be granted for a sidewalk along Higas. Now, one correction that Jay brought to my attention, and that is I had included, there had been some discussions on the development team about providing $35,000 towards the build out of a sidewalk network. I know that the design of that and the specifics of it aren't fully fleshed out at this point. Jay brought up the fact to me, but it didn't get corrected in the memo that was submitted last week in your packet, that that $35,000 payment or whatever that payment is, isn't really a public benefit per se, in that we'll be going back to the planning board, and the requirement of a public sidewalk and those discussions of whether it's a public sidewalk or in lieu of payment is really for the purview of the planning board. And so, following the first reading, public hearing, the second reading, we'll be then going back to the planning board for final approval, and it will consider a conversation about the sidewalk. So I'll stop there. I think I've sort of covered all the overview and my talking points. I'll stop there and welcome any questions.
Thank you, sir. With that, does anybody question, Rick, do you want to give your presentation and then we'll?
I didn't have anything to add unless you want some of those features that Bill mentioned, pointed out.
I mean, I believe we've seen this several times, but for the benefit of the public, do you want to, just because it was a little hectic, I think I'm going to make you do a quick presentation with the visuals. Okay, is that okay?
Sure. As Bill mentioned, so what you're seeing in this photo is the existing development, the 288 units. With that photo, looking from across the street over, basically over the downs, looking at Higas Parkway with the site in the foreground. This is a kind of a rotated view of the development. We're looking at these 2 buildings closest to Higas Parkway with the existing development on the bottom of the page. The EV stations that Bill mentioned are located on the right-hand side of that drawing, next to the garage, the garage. So there'd be 4 parking stalls with EV stations. And I apologize. I was worried about that email, so I missed what the other public benefits that Bill mentioned. But I could point those out.
No, I think you listed all of them. And yep, that's fine. Okay, with that, I apologize for the mishap there. Any questions for Bill or Mark? Any questions from us before we put it on the floor? Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, just real quickly, just looking very quickly at the pictures that keep drifting back and forth here. The design is basically the same as what you have, or is it the same as what's there now?
Yes, the building architecture is very similar, color scheme, massing. These buildings are a little bit smaller. The unit mix is 1, 2, and studio apartments.
Okay.
So the building is a little bit smaller, but basically the same architecture.
Can you talk about the numbers of like 1 studio, 2? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I could look it up. I may have to get back to you on that.
Putting you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
Because I know people in the public would be interested in knowing that.
I will confirm, but I believe it's Dave, do you recall? I'll confirm. Let me look it up and I'll confirm,
But
come back to that.
The largest units are 2 bedrooms, correct?
In these 2 buildings,
Okay.
correct.
Right.
Councilor Katarina, I believe there's 24 1-bedroom and studios and then 24 2-bedrooms.
Okay.
I'm getting affirmative, so.
Okay. That's
Any-
all, that's it for my
Yep.
question.
Any other questions? Counselor Clucci?
Yeah, so my understanding is that you're seeking an exemption from the GMO only if the permits aren't available at the beginning of the year, but I think the expectation is that you'll be able to do this within the permits allowed for in the GMO. Is that accurate?
I'll let Bill answer that, but I believe that's accurate.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that's right. I think we'll have within the allotment, but we just wanted to provide, not knowing what other activity was going on, wanted to make sure, just given the time sensitivities, once you mobilize a construction crew, making sure that you had the permits that you needed at that time when you're ready to move. So that's why we worded it as we did.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, so thank you, everybody. I think we're going to put it on the floor at this point. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, and before we open a discussion, just because it was a member, part of public comment and a little bit of clarifying there, the way that this is written is 24 of these units will be counted against the 144. And 24 of these units are, there are 70 built-in exemptions units in the new GMO for either single bedroom or studio apartments.
Mhm.
Those have not all been used. So as it stands right now, 24 of those units will be counted against our 144 and 24 of those units will be counted against the 70 that were exempt to begin with. In the meetings with the contractors or the developers, they did say, hey, that's, we will be in the GMO but we're about to invest millions and millions of dollars. So in the off chance that we break ground in January or February and we go to get our growth permits, we need to cover our investment. So there is a but-for clause in the contract right now that says you are to abide by the GMO, but as a body, we understand that if you get to a certain point and you're out of permit, so to speak, then they will be exempt. I just want to make that because it's a little confusing, but just I want to make that clear for the member of the public that spoke and for the public at large as well. Developers, do you agree with everything I said? I want to make sure that I didn't misstate any of that. Okay. And just a reminder for the public, our building permits are now tied to, our growth permits are now tied to building permits. So you're not allowed to go get a building permit in town anymore until your project is ready for a building permit. So you cannot quote hoard growth permits up front, so to speak. Sorry, with that, I just thought it was relevant information. Any discussion on our end? Councilor Cucci?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I also wanted to point out this contract zone is really made necessary because when you can't build an apartment building in this zone. So that's one of the exceptions that we need to grant. And the other is that you can't you can't build an apartment building, right? There's 24 units in the building and the density doesn't allow for that. So to me, that's really the exception that we're making, is that the zoning as it was written didn't contemplate apartment buildings. From my perspective, I think they're a good fit for that area, that location. It's directly off of the highway spur that honestly has been underutilized until this time. And hopefully this type of activity will help to spur some other types of uses that might come to the area that would benefit all of Scarborough. And it's been around. This is a small addition to what's already there. I think, I'm in favor of moving this forward.
Any more questions? Any more comments? Excuse me, Councilor Caterina.
Yeah, I certainly understand the concerns of the young man who spoke, Mr. Nygren, regarding, some people in town do feel like growth's going too fast and traffic issues, whatever. And I certainly hear that and I certainly understand that. However, I do want to remind folks that under our zoning and what we've done as a town, these will be built in what's called a designated growth area. And frankly, I guess I know I'm starting to get the reputation now as the workforce housing gal. And as a real estate broker, there's no housing out there, whether it's for people to buy or even apartments. Now, granted, these gentlemen, the developers, aren't building, so-called affordable apartments or workforce apartments, whatever, but they are making a good donation to the affordable fund, which I think is good. Frankly, I'd rather hold their feet to the fire when they're looking at me over there. But that's not how it works in this world. But the more supply we have out there, it's basic economics, it's supply and demand. And the more supply we have out there, there's less pressure, upward pressure on lease prices. And I can tell you for a fact, I had a discussion within the last month with a teacher who's in the school system, who's recently divorced and has custody of their child. And he wants his child to be in the Scarborough school system, but he can't afford to rent anything in town. And that's an issue. We aren't going to solve it overnight, but I certainly feel that by expanding the availability of rental housing is important. This is the area for it. And so I would definitely support this project.
Counselor Johnson?
You're gonna have to forgive me. I need some clarity. Was the motion brought forward on this? This is a discussion or is this comment? Okay, so then I have a comment under the motion. I want to address the young man's concern. Thank you for bringing that up. I definitely hear you. But it is important to understand that this developer is actually playing by the rules with our new GMO. And the allocation of the 48 units that are being built are actually going to be coming out of the pool. So they're very legitimate, very legal. That's going to reduce that 144 pool down for the remainder of the year. So it may get interesting as other developers come in and that pool now is starting to be reduced. So stay informed, stay engaged, and you can contact me anytime over at Juneberry and we can have a coffee and have a discussion. But I'm going to support this one. Thank you.
Counselor Anderson?
Yeah, so, just looking at the contract zone appendix A in terms of, is this really meeting the public benefit? When I look at that, I think, yes, it's going to help with net positive impact on the tax base. Yes, will be an indirect employment opportunity, driving, more economic growth in the area. It will enhance the variety of housing. It'll maintain property values. It's compatible with the current neighborhood. And there is some public benefit, especially with those charging stations. I guess for me, just kind of building off of what Councilor Katarina said, but also kind of looking at it slightly differently, these are luxury apartments. So I don't really feel like it's going to address necessarily the issue we have around workforce housing. This is like a very specific market that they're looking for. And when I look at the public benefit that they're offering with affordable housing at 250, it seems like a good number. But then when I look at the rent they're charging and how high that is, it doesn't seem as big of a number when I think about all the money that they're going to be making from these units. So just doing some back of the napkin math, $1.3 million in year one, $6.5 million by year 5, $40 million by year 30. Year 30, that's 0.6% in terms of what they're contributing to affordable housing, which to me, given the issues that were brought forward by the gentleman in terms of all of the decisions we have to make around growth, like I feel like the development community needs to do better in terms of offering better public benefit. I think this is good. I don't think it's good enough. I do think this is a great project. I do think there is benefit, but I do think we as a council have a need to look more at all of these things that are coming our way. Tom mentioned the Downs coming forward with requests. I know there's more in the pipeline. I just want the development community to know that they can do better than what they're offering. So for tonight, I'm going to be a no on this one.
Counselor Hamel?
Yeah, like with many things, this is an evolving thing that we're dealing with. We're evolving in terms of managing growth, the pace of growth. We are seeing an evolution of a severe housing affordability issue. So I think it's important to remember that the folks that are applying for this contract zone amendment are very well established in the area. They're very well regarded developers with a strong track record. They have investors. And I think what they've done so far is that we've also been evolving in terms of our own definition or working definition for what should constitute the community benefit. So that will evolve. The concept of workforce affordable housing is a very new one. Everyone is struggling with this. No one's solved for it yet in the state, nobody that I can think of. So we've made good headway with affordable housing, low income and also senior affordable housing. So this is a task for us, but I think to expect us to have the current applicant bear the burden for that, it would not really be fair. So I'm in favor of this. I think they've been patient. They've owned this property for a while. It's lied fallow for a while, as much of the property along Higas has. So I'd rather see this development that's going to be very consistent with the phase that's been built already, which is, it serves a certain segment of the market. So I think we need to support that as well while we continue to solve for the other challenges that have been articulated this evening.
Thank you, sir. Any others? No, I'm just gonna I'll make two quick points. I own a business in the Pepperell Mill campus that's in Main Street in Biddeford. So everybody take a second and think about Main Street in Biddeford. And it's a revitalization project in Mills, an 1,100 square foot apartment, 2 bedrooms in that mill project's $2,600 a month. So, and I just asked Councilor Anderson what he was referencing their rent. I believe their rent for a similar 2 bedroom is $1,875 or something thereof. You know, when you think apartments in a mill in Biddeford and you think of luxury apartments in Scarborough, that's close to an $800 difference a month. And it's certainly not affordable housing. I'm not going to pretend like it is. But there's a big problem with gentrification in some of these areas like Biddeford. And then there's pricing out people in Portland, and that's our neighbor to the south and our neighbor to the north. And we have to fit something in the middle. And I think this does. Secondly, something that's, you know, unless you're on the council, you probably don't pay a ton of attention to before my time. So I'll just say this is Councilor Katarina's fault. We have a credit enhancement agreement on Higas Parkway that is to the tune of $8 million, and it's a maximum of $800,000 a year. And Higas Parkway is essentially a desert, and it laid a huge egg. And when we first entered into that credit enhancement agreement, it was supposed to be all office space, right? If you look at that, it's the best highway we have in town, so to speak. It's supposed to be luxurious office space, high value, everything. And there was nothing there. And these guys came in and actually created some value there and enabled our town to start paying an $8 million bill. So there's a financial aspect of this that I think makes a heck of a lot of sense. I think that we're on the tail end of that $8 million, and that's going to be pretty huge for us financially. And I think a lot of it is owed to this project. This project is made stuff at Cabela's viable. Cabela's wasn't viable on its own. And now that these guys exist, stuff that's in Cabela's, some of the restaurants and the beer place, those are all now viable, and they weren't because Cabela's laid an egg. So financially speaking, I think it makes a lot of sense. And these guys are a known quantity. They've been incredibly patient with us. We've pulled them through the ringer. They want to be exempt from the GMO. They're not going to be. And I'm satisfied with where we are as far as I'm concerned. Yep, go ahead.
You're not blaming me for the Higas Parkway debacle.
No,
I
I'll
haven't
just,
been on the
fair
council
enough.
that long.
I'll blame Town Manager Hall, which I think it's actually before his time
That
as
was
well.
before his time too, so don't be blaming him.
It makes a good soundbite. Yeah, Councilor Cucci?
I just wanted to reaffirm Councilor Johnson's point where you can look at this. We're going to probably sell out of GMO permits next year. There's going to be 144 issued. This is going to take 24 away. It's going to put them next to Cabela's as opposed to putting 24 single family houses near you. And you know, that's just the reality of it. So there's some public benefit alone with that.
See how much attention you get when you make public comment at the Scarborough Town Council? No, Mr. Dyer. No, come back. I'm holding you to your word that you'll be back.
I'd just like to make a correction to I looked up the architectural plans.
Yeah.
There are 12 2-bedroom units, 6 in each building.
Yep.
12 studio apartments, 6 in each building, and then 24 1-bedrooms.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. I think, thanks for the clarification. With that, if there's nobody else, I'd like to call a vote. Tony?
Council Cucci?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
No.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Order number 21096 is a reading and schedule a public hearing, first reading and schedule a public hearing on proposed amendment to chapter 311, the town of Scarborough Schedule of Fees. Todd, Todd, are you in there? Does
Yeah,
Todd want to?
Todd's here to speak to this, if you could. Just while you're getting him into the meeting, oftentimes we don't think of this until budget time or springtime. We thought we'd try to get ahead of the curve.
Yep.
And Todd did some comparative analysis with what other communities are charging and also coordinated with town staff and his proposal that he'd like to present.
Todd?
Sure. Council, thanks for having me. Yes, so just a couple quick things. We approved 2 beach meters this summer and which will be installed next year, matching the ones we presently have, one at Ferry and one at Herd Park. And so as Manager Hall mentioned, I was asked to look at the fees comparatively and studied up and down the coast as I did prior to installing the first meters. So went through those things, met with PD leadership, harbor master, and then my beach management staff, and then vetted through the rec advisory committee. I present the fees and the structure for your review and consideration tonight. As you can see, as we start looking at the Higgins Beach, the meters, currently our fee is $1 for those 13 spots an hour. And after looking at what other communities charge per hour, Saco 2, Wells 4, York 2, Gunkwit 2, Old Orchard 3, and discussing confirming with PD, we're recommending changing that fee to $2 an hour, which would then bring that fee more in line with other folks, but then also help offset some of the costs down there, including parking enforcement and spot management. In that same section under passes in the chapter 311, it mentions pass cards for meters for $1. Those were never implemented, so I just asked that those be removed from the schedule for lack of confusion, confusion. I'll take any questions on that section before I move on, if anybody has any.
Why don't you present all of it at once, Todd?
Okay, surely. And then looking at the daily parking rates, and these are with daily rates. Currently, our charge is broken up into 3 sections: morning parking, end of day, and then pretty much full day parking. We currently charge $5 on either end and $15 in the middle. A challenge with the $15 and even the $5 is it's a challenge for our beach managers. They're constantly running around trying to make change for beach attendants. People give a $20 bill, and we're always having to have 5. So that's reduce some of the money management and reduce some of our risk there. Reviewing the fees around coastal, people are anywhere from 25 to 30. And as we all know, Old Orchard Beach, depending on where you park, those rates can be upwards of $30 or $40 on the private lots. So we are suggesting $20 as the daily rate. You can see in the 2 morning and ends, we used to charge $5, and based on a recommendation from our rec advisory board, recommending removing the early morning and the late parking fee. So it would be a flat $5 charge, $20 charge, regardless whether you came in at 5:30 in the morning or 5:30 at night. The thinking for council from the committee is that we are not proposing any season pass changes. So our residents would still be able to purchase a season pass for $40 and a second vehicle pass for $5. And then a non-resident would be able to purchase a pass for $50. So any resident that went to the beach more than once would be fiscally wise to just purchase, a season beach pass. Does a couple things for us. Again, reduces cash exchange, and then it allows that maybe some of our cash flow would be reduced on a daily basis, and then we could sell more seasons pass to residents and non-residents. And then after consulting with the police department on the daily boat launch fee, we have presently 2 rates. We're proposing changing both rates to equal $20. It looks like it's an increase to the residents, which it would be, but by not increasing the launch pass fees, it's really a better deal and puts us in line with less cash handling and then a consistent 1 fee, reducing cash daily handling. So that's what I have before you today for your review and consideration.
Thank you, Todd. I'll take questions for Todd and then I'm gonna go to the public. So it's not on the floor yet, but are there questions for Todd before I go to the public? Councillor Clucci.
Todd, what time do your staff arrive at either Ferry or Bird Park or the Higgins lot?
Yep, all the beaches presently, they're staffed at 8 o'clock in the morning. The importance of installing the meters at the other 2 locations this upcoming summer is our signage says either pay the meter or pay the machine. And so again, by increasing sales of beach passes, we're taking more people off the honor system. And we have been working with the police department to do spot checks in those off hours before and after our staff comes and goes.
So if somebody comes in at 5:30 and leaves before 8, unless they decide to pay somebody, it's basically free. I think that's okay. I just wanted to understand it.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
We've considered that in the past and actually try to staff those early hours. One, it's hard to find people to work that early. 2, it's really not financially lucrative. We're paying out sometimes more in staff than it's worth. And so 8 o'clock is really-
Hamel and Johnson will do it. They just said they would.
Exactly right.
We are looking for part-time help.
Cash business.
Any other questions for Todd before I go to the public? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah. Let me take a deep breath here, because when I hear Old Orchard Beach parking fees, this is why I do not go to Old Orchard to pay their parking fees. Todd, in our fee structure, with everything that community services does, and I think you do a stellar job, is this a break-even point, or are you contributing to the general fund? Because I'm a firm believer that our community services should be a zero-sum game to offer services to the town, the people that live in this town. So the question is, in all your endeavors, in all things that you charge with fees, is it a break-even point?
Let me clarify regarding our beach operation.
Yeah, well, since you're talking about that, yeah, we can do beach operation. Is that
So
a
our
break-even point?
operation is, we get this question all the time especially from taxpayers when we raise fees. Beach operation is 100% self-funded from the revenues collected, either gates or season passes. Our total operation, and I don't have the number in front of me, full 6 division is like 92% self-funded from user fees collected.
And self-funded, you mean it's covering the cost of the operation?
Yes, sir.
No
Okay.
tax dollars other than 8%.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Councillor Hamel.
Thank you. Todd, I had a question for you on this, the reasoning behind, eliminating the early bird opportunity there for folks to go there early and get in some surfing or swim or whatever. You suggest that would make the cash handling easier. Is that the main motivator there? I'm not really following that.
Sure, it's kind of a couple things. Initially, when we looked at this, Councillor Hamel, we looked at raising it to $10 instead of $5, and then from 15 to 20. When I brought the recommendation to the Rec Advisory Board, when we talked about the cost for the resident beach pass at $40, and that I would assume, and again, this is just an assumption, last year we sold our highest year, over 1,700 resident beach passes. That most people that frequent the beach, even at those early hours, would go and purchase a $40 pass. And then because really what we're seeing from some of our folks that are in there in the early, we get a lot of residents from out of town, non-residents in those early hours at some of the beaches, dog walking, visiting. And so they're not contributing to the overall operational cost, whether that's restroom cleaning, waste management, refilling dog waste bags. And so looking at that fee structure, I think that was a lot of the reasoning behind their recommendation to move it to a flat range where it really wouldn't impact residents if they bought a season's pass. But then hopefully non-residents would share a little more in the equity of and may buy a season pass, because if they're a daily, weekly walker and they have to pay $20, they go 8 times. Now it's better to buy a season pass. We may actually collect some money for some of the offsetting services.
So if I may respond, I understand the balancing act there between, trying to make sure we're looking after access for residents, but also maintaining access to others. And it's a tricky one because we want to try to do both. The other thing I'd say is, just for the love of Mike, can we get out of the business of handling cash? In spite of Councilor Johnson and I suggesting that we take over that operation on a cash basis. We can't, there's no way we can do that. And that just doesn't make sense for me to justify staffing and also collecting cash and then sending a bag of money someplace at the end of the day. I mean, so help me with that. It just seems like an anachronism.
Sure. So we consider that during the thing. So a couple things. One, we had this discussion when I first got here 5 years ago, because the proposal was to automate the machines, and talking to all the parking companies, we will never eliminate staff fully at the facilities, because you still need someone to manage where they park, how they park, dealing with trash and resident complaints and doing the service-based stuff. So there's a customer service aspect of it, maintaining the bathrooms on a daily basis. As you know, it could take us upwards of 20 minutes to get down to a beach from even our central town hall location. And so we'll never remove staff completely from that. Regarding the machine, we went through the analysis of, do we do it all at once? Do we change the fees? We're going to be installing new meters at the other 2 beaches this year. And then also the new meters have a different screen board, which I've heard is more reliable. They don't break down as much. So the challenge is, when you go fully automated, is that, do you have a good backup system? Do you have quick access where the machine's broken and now people aren't parking and paying? Who's collecting? So there's a lot to think about. If that's a direction we want to go, we can definitely do a deeper dive into that. But there will be what I believe would be considerable upfront cost to make sure that we have the right system and mechanisms. I would recommend that we would never eliminate staff altogether.
Thank you. Councilor Caterina?
Yeah, Todd, would you mind talking about the free passes for resident seniors, just to remind people about that?
Yeah, sure. So we're part of our structure in Chapter 11 that seniors, all they have to do is come in and get a free beach pass, just like anyone else would with their residency. Last year, between Tody's office and Lisa's office, we gave out 2,804 senior passes. So there's no money collected for those. It's just a service that Scarborough's always offered their seniors, and really a lot of attendants are a big service for those folks as far as helping parking and locating folks. And so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Todd, just so I hear this right, you gave out 2,800 free senior passes and then 1,700 paid passes? Am I hearing that right?
1,753 in resident passes and 277 in non-resident passes.
Okay. So, and then 2,804 in free pass. So the free passes are outnumbering the paid passes.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what, if you go to the beach, I don't know the answer to this question. If you go to the beach, is there like a receipt you can ask for and apply it to a season pass?
So if somebody went in, so right now, if you went to Higgins Beach into our lot and you bought you did transacts through the machine, and then all of a sudden you realize that, you'd like to get a season pass within reason. We don't have a policy, but we've allowed people to come in and offset to get a season pass. We're not going to let you go buy 4 of them and show a chock full of, receipts to come back. But some people don't realize the operation. And so that's kind of been a loose practice.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to close the Q&A and I'm going to go to the public. Does anybody in front of me want to speak? Nope. And does anybody in Zoom like to speak? Nope. I have a few people on Zoom. I have 3 people on Zoom. Please state your full name and your address. Mr. Yates, you are up first. Doug, can you hear me? You are.
Hello. Sorry,
Yep.
I was on the mute there. Douglas Lund Yates. Can you Can you hear me okay now?
We can. Yep, go ahead.
Terrific, yeah. Doug Lundy, 64 Ocean Avenue, down here in Higgins Beach. I'm a little concerned about the restriction. It seems like the access to Higgins Beach is getting further restricted again, especially for outside people visiting Higgins Beach. I like the idea of the passes for the residents, but for the non-residents who are visiting town, for example, if they're coming up here for the week and they're suddenly forced to pay $20 a day, a lot of these people are coming up and they only just want to spend a few hours here, and they're going to be forced to spend $20 a day, which would be, if they're here just for a week vacationing, they've got to pony up $140 on top. They could buy a season pass, that's $150. So it's kind of the squeezing out the non-residents, and we all like to have access to the beach here. It seems like the direction of the town is to squeeze out anybody who isn't a town resident. If that's the direction, then, you know, it's unfortunate. But I just wondered whether there's been any survey of the actual people who do use the early spots and the late spots. I understand there's a survey up and down the coast of other parking fees in other towns, but was there actually a survey done of the people who actually do turn up at 5:30 a.m. and later on in the day? Do we know the proportion of non-residents to residents?
Thank you, sir. I
Just
appreciate
for
it.
the, you know, for the interest of transparency, we'd all love to know those numbers.
I don't think we have them, to be honest with you. So no, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
sir.
your time.
Yes. Mr. Stunkel, you were up next.
Hi, Eric Stunkel from 8 Robinson Road. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, thanks for listening and bringing forth this opportunity. I currently utilize Higgins as like my main beach. I go to a lot of other places, but and I have been to a lot of other ocean communities, you know, New Jersey, all sorts of places. And obviously, like, parking fees can vary quite a bit. I mean, you can definitely spend some serious money just to go to the beach, and it doesn't matter, you know, it's a flat rate on some of the lots, and other ones you kind of go by the hour. I know personally I would use like a Gunquit, for example, more if the rates were more reasonable. I don't really find myself going there. And, you know, just kind of looking at what I'm most concerned about with the increase is just taking away the 5:30 to 9 a.m. and the 3 to 6 time period for the $5. I think that's a pretty reasonable charge. And I think that, you know, especially given that someone could just be going down for a quick hour surf or walking their dog, or, you know, maybe they just want to meet somebody down there for a quick picnic after a hard day at work. Maybe they're the single mom that Katarina mentioned. I think you start getting into $20 for when you only have a couple hours of daylight left, or, you know, you're just trying to go there for that brief period. I think that just eliminating that it's a little ridiculous to have it be $20 personally. Just, you know, it just seems so high just to go there for a short period. Obviously, if you're there all day, you know, I get that, but I guess I'm just thinking that that'd be something that I'd really urge everybody to reconsider is just due to like cash handling and stuff. I get it. It's harder to kind of figure out when people came in, and especially when you don't have an attendant there until 8 a.m., for example, in the early morning hours, to kind of regulate that. And so I get that, but I think that it's missing out a little bit. I think it just becomes a little too unaffordable just to come for that short period. I think that maybe more for, like, you know, the main part of the day, maybe if that's where we have to raise more, then maybe that's what it's got to be. But I really would like it to still kind of consider those time periods. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ketchum, you're up next.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to echo what the previous statements before me said in terms of the $5 amount being a reasonable charge for the mornings and evenings. Myself, I live at 74 Deering Street in Portland, so I am technically the non-resident user. And I believe it was mentioned earlier in the meeting that the non-resident price is $50, which I just looked it up and it's $150. That is an exorbitant amount for someone who doesn't use the beach all that frequently. And also just as the previous gentleman stated, the kind of beach goer that only uses it for a couple hours at the end or beginning of the day. And so having the early and late fees differ than the full $20 is advantageous to the local community. And as one of the council members mentioned previously, they determine where they go to the beach on the coast based on the parking fees. He said that he avoids going to Old Orchard because of the parking fees. I frequented Higgins quite a bit more this past season because of the convenience of the parking fees. So I would say that yes, you should definitely gravitate away from using cash. There are machines that can easily fix that issue for you, and I would appreciate it. And I know a lot of other people who use the beach would appreciate it if we maintained the same timeframes and charges. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sands, you are up next. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, hello. I guess I'm largely going to repeat the comments of the previous two speakers. I come down from Harpswell, from Cundies Harbour, for morning surfs before work, often during the summer when the weather's good enough. And the $5 rate in the morning is really quite attractive and seems fair. You don't always know that you're going to get good enough surf days, enough good surf days to make it worth paying the $150, and what with other things that go on in the summer. So I often, and my wife as well, she's also a surfer, we often choose to sort of do the $5 at a time, which does seem like a fair kind of rate. You know, a 300% increase, if my maths are right, and they're notoriously bad, so you might want to check that, but a 300% increase up to $20 effectively for that pre-work morning surf seems like a really large increase, especially if it is just because handling cash is inconvenient. I know we've never paid with cash, and as one of the council members said, let's just move to cashless payments. That's pretty easy, I would assume and hope. And I guess I would also just say, on the previous motion, I heard one of the councillors say that there's just this sense of ordinary people being priced out of the town. And I would just urge you to look at this in the same light as that. It's important. I think it's an important principle to just establish that people who don't have lots of money can use Higgins Beach. And in the couple of years that I've been frequenting Higgins as a surfer, I have seen it change. It seems to be getting to be a much more expensive sort of place to be in terms of the real estate prices and so on. And one of its charms is that ordinary people still use it. And I would just encourage you to try and keep that the case if you can. Obviously, you have your local financial considerations, and I completely respect those. But just because neighboring beaches might be overcharging doesn't mean that you should also overcharge. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Sands, and your math was correct. It is a 300% increase for the early morning.
Oh, well done, me.
I give you a 100. Ms. Gates, you are allowed to speak now.
Great, thank you very much. Hi, my name is Melissa Gates. I'm calling in on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation Maine chapter. Pretty much just echoing the other comments that have come in already. Just expressing deep concern for the equity considerations for disproportionately disadvantaging financially challenged individuals and families, right? That $5 pre-heat of the day and post-heat of the day parking fee really does open up good accessibility for folks who just want to jump into the ocean or have a couple surfs into the shore before work, or walk their dog friends before or after work without paying that full $20. And these are folks who are from the metropolitan area, right? They bring in other business into Scarborough when they visit. It's just a really nice, affordable rate to offer to folks to be able to come and leverage this awesome public resource. So I really hope that you'll reconsider that and not eliminate that morning reduced rate and that evening reduced rate. Totally understand the impetus behind trying to go cash free, especially, with all of the COVID scare and with the other considerations there. But I think there are some other great ways to look at achieving that goal without disadvantaging folks by hiking up this 300%. Good on the previous commenter there for getting that right. But yeah, I really hope that you'll put some additional thought into that. $15 to $20 isn't a huge jump, and I understand if that needs to happen, but would urge you to please keep that reduced rate for the hours before and after the heat of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to close public comment and accept a motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, as I recall, a few years back, when I was first on the council, I never thought I'd be the old person of the council, but here we go. We did have some discussions, shall I put it nicely, about Higgins Beach and surfing and this and that and the other thing. And I'm looking at Mr. Hall because I know he was part of it, but one of the reasons for coming up with this lower rate was an attempt to get people in the early morning hours who do tend at times to be surfers and or dog walkers, but in particular with surfers at that point, to park in the parking lot and not be on the front of the beach and changing. And there was all sorts of brouhaha. I don't know how many of you remember that at all. But that being said, so I understand their concern. But that being said, charging fees is also a way to even out the cost of usage. And it's also a way to control, and I hate to use that word because it sounds really strong, the amount of usage of a resource that if it's overused could be damaged or becomes, not a good place to be. So, I think as municipal officials, we try to strike a fine line. And I will admit I'm not a mathematician per se, but I know a lot of the surfers come regularly in the summer. And I'm just wondering, buying a pass, if you're not a resident, it would work its way out, would be just as affordable. If not, maybe more so, I don't know. But I certainly understand having a consistent fee, because I do know that there have been issues. In fact, I haven't called Mr. Hall yet, but I did get a phone call the other day from someone who's concerned about lack of enforcement of parking and how many parking tickets aren't paid, and at least their perception. But I'm not even going to go there tonight because I haven't had a chance to double check that. But that being said, I support raising the fees and I support making them consistent. But I certainly understand, where these folks are coming from, but, so there are all sorts of things we have to keep in mind, so.
Thank you. Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to Todd. I know he and staff have put a lot of time and thought into this, and including the input from the committees. So thanks for that. And I think revisions need to be made. However, there's two things that are sticking points for me. I think you heard the discussion about the early and late fees. I think that's a benefit, particularly to people, as it was described by Melissa, to maintain access for folks who, may not have the same resources as others. So I think that's important to maintain, fair access to our parks and to our beaches. So I'd like to see that revised, and I'd like to see a plan for us to get out of the business of handling cash. So I need to see more work on those two things, and otherwise will not support this until that time. Thanks.
Council Calucci? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a motion to amend, and hopefully it'll encourage some discussion, but what I'd like to change is the hours for the daily parking fee at Ferry Beach, Higgins Beach, and Hurd Park. It's currently listed as 5:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. at a rate of $20, moving from $15. I'd like to amend the hours to be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you're out of the lot by 9, it's free. If you're in after 5, it's free. I'd also encourage staff to post that information at the site, and maybe information about how you can get a pass from the town clerk. But the motion is basically just changing the hours of operation.
And not charging before or after.
That's
By
the
changing the
motion.
hours of operation, by default, it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the motion to amend is to tighten the hours of operation till, sorry, can you say it one more time?
9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and discussion on the amendment. Counselor Johnson, then Counselor Hamel, then Counselor Caterina.
Last
Just on
time-
the amendment right now, not on the
The
main
amendment.
motion.
I just don't know how you would enforce that. Last time I went to Disney World, I just wanted to go Space Mountain and they wouldn't let me in there until I bought the whole ticket. But I digress. I'm sorry. But I just don't know how you enforce that. You get at 8:30, I mean, especially in the summertime, you get there at 8 o'clock with your blankets and your picnics and you're off on the beach, and who's going to hunt you down because you got there before 8? So I understand the intent. I think possibly we could discuss maybe reducing the non-resident fee. That might be a method to do it, make it fair across the board. But
Okay, on the amendment only, please, Counselor Hamel, then Counselor Caterina.
Yeah, I know this is always tricky, trying to substitute our judgment real time for folks that have studied this. Okay, so we know the dark side of that. However, I think the point is that this needs work and it needs a better solution. I like what Counselor Calucci has proposed, but I have to confess that I'm not sure we can work through all the aspects of that. And, I'd like to, also repeat my desire to try to get a plan to make, and this is not really a proposal for a motion, that's really a request of Todd to come back with a plan with a set certain timeline for when we are going to exit cash handling. So I don't know how to do that procedurally, but I in spirit and actually in flesh, I am supporting Counselor Calucci's amendment here.
Okay, so on the amendment only of amending the parking hours, Counselor Caterina, I had called on you, and then Counselor Anderson.
And now I gotta take this mask off.
On the amendment only.
Yes, I know. Enforcement's an issue. I do know that, because I know some of the attendants, and they, on really nice, really hot days I'm most familiar with Ferry Beach, they can come in to work at 7:30, when things start at 8, and the parking lot's full and people aren't leaving. And it's, so it's that fine line. I may be able to support Mr. Calucci's amendment if you put it like at 7 a.m. perhaps.
Well, that's
I think 9 a.m.
that's a different amendment, so we're not.
I'm
okay.
just telling
Okay.
you what I would be willing to support, maybe. But I think that 9's too late, and I do think that we need to be charging for the use of our facilities. That's just my opinion, and we welcome yours.
Counselor Anderson?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Counselor Johnson mentioned about the real inequity seems to be more around the non-residential pass at 150. A lot of the people we heard tonight sounded like they were from not within Scarborough that had the bigger concern. And I think, the current approach with the $20 and the $40, resident pass isn't going to be as big of an issue. And so I think, I don't know if it's changing the time, but more maybe revisiting the non-resident pass cost.
Okay, I'm going to call a vote on the amendment. Tony? On the amendment?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
No.
Counselor Katarina,
No.
Counselor Johnson,
No.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
No.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we're back to the main motion, discussion on the main motion. So back to the original. Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, I think this still needs work. I was at the rec advisory board when this came up, and I think that the focus and the recommendation from the committee really came from thinking about residents of Scarborough and looking at the $40, thinking $20 would be fair. I don't think there was enough consideration probably at the time given to the non-residents, and I think that's worth going back and revisiting. So I think that needs to happen. There probably needs to be more work before this moves forward.
Thank you. Any others? Counselor Katarina.
I'd like to offer an amendment
Okay,
to charge for parking from 7 a.m. to 5.
okay. Similar to Counselor Clucci, but you
Mhm.
expanded the hours.
Mhm.
Does that have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Counselor Clucci.
Yeah, no, I just say that there's nobody there until 8. So it's free today until 8 o'clock. And even then, the guy's probably cleaning the bathroom at 8. To some extent, I feel like it's semantics. Practically, it's free until 8 anyways. So we can say it's free till 7, but if you're out by 8, it's the honor system. So I support it. I think that, Counselor, it's hard to do this real time. You're right. I think you might be onto something with moving towards or taking a look at the non-resident fees and maybe publicizing passes. But to me, we've got a beautiful resource. People want to use it and it's available. There's no competition at that time in the morning. I'd like them to be able to use it. There's no beaches in Buxton. That's just my perspective.
Okay, on the amendment to have the hours is only 7 to 5. Counselor Hamel.
Is this a discussion or a vote?
Yeah, no, just a discussion and it's only on the amendment of 7 to 5.
So I'm here in spirit, but not in flesh on this one. So I think, yeah, trying to.
So we've lost half of you.
Yeah, you lost half of me and I can't support this as a result. So I think this needs to go back to Todd. I think we have at least one thing that I think there's a merging consensus around the non-resident, looking at it again and the equity associated with that. And I'd like to kind of tag on my little spiel here for cash, but I'll do that, in some other fashion here a little bit later this evening, if we don't go too late. Thanks.
I'm going to call a vote on Counselor Katarina's amendment. Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
No.
Counselor Anderson,
No.
Counselor Katarina,
No.
Counselor Johnson,
No.
Counselor Hamel,
No.
and Chairman Johnson.
No.
Motion fails.
Now, this might seem like a circus, but it's actually really good feedback. So keep it coming. There's nothing wrong. This is a good process. I'm back to the main motion with absolutely no amendments on it. Are there any more discussion? Counselor Clucci.
So I'm not going to offer an amendment. I just, procedurally, we can approve this first reading with the expectation and hope that we'll get additional detail between now and second reading, as opposed to voting it down where it has to come and start afresh. So I am in favor of moving this forward. I think we've had a robust discussion, and I hope that the final product looks better.
Point of information here.
Can't wait. Go ahead. Yep.
Thanks. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what I might be voting for.
That's
or
fair.
not.
I think that's a fair.
So I just want to make sure we don't forfeit the opportunity to send this back and get it revised. So I don't like the idea of voting for something saying, yeah, but, so could you clarify that for me?
I think that's a great question. Yeah. I think we could say, hey, we're going to pass this on first reading, but signal it wouldn't pass on second reading, and please take the feedback. Alternatively, we could vote this down. It would probably get worked probably a little bit longer, a little bit more, and it might come back in a different form.
I like option A, but I'd also like to add a little more feedback at some point.
Tom, do you want to?
Just another option is to table the matter, which buys time.
Okay, and then we also have a table. So any more? Are you gonna make a motion to table? Because I haven't
Yeah.
said anything about this yet. I've been a very good chair. Councilor Caterina?
Move to table.
Oh, you. Is there a second?
Until, I don't know, December, the second meeting of December.
Move table to the second meeting in December. Is there, to December, is there a second on the,
I second that.
okay? No discussion on tables. Can I call a vote?
Counselor Pucci?
No.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes,
Counselor Johnson?
make your mind up.
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
No.
Motion passes.
Thanks, guys. Really glad I got to throw in my 2 cents on that. With that, we're taking a 5-minute recess. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
At least we have a sense of humor. Well, look at the graphics.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience as we went on a brief recess. We are now on to order number 21097. It's an act on the request from the Rules and Policy Committee to approve the proposed new policy of calculation of projected valuation, which would repeal and replace the current 101.4, establishing a methodology for calculation of projected valuation. Councilor Anderson's the chair of Rules and Policy, so I'll have him explain it. And I'll try to bring it up here so we can have something to look at.
Yep, so we discussed this in the last two Rules and Policy Committee meetings. Really, I think what drove this is we haven't been using the policy that we've had for the past 2 years, I believe, because it's a little bit outdated based on the recent revaluation that happened. It kind of made the calculation and everything not work. And so we met to figure out what's a better approach, and also with the principle to keep it simple. So what we're recommending is a much simpler, more straightforward approach. Again, this would be to help drive the estimate that we get in at budget in terms of the valuation estimate that the town manager would propose as part of the budget calculation. And we went with a 90% factor based on the prior year additional value for the new property, just to make sure we have a little bit more of a realistic view of what the valuation could be. What we've done in the past, I think it's been slightly more conservative. And so what that does at budget, it tends to, get us very much focused on potentially what we need to cut, because we're looking at it in a much more conservative manner. And then we have things that happen like this year, which is great, where the valuation comes in higher, and all of a sudden what was a 2%, mill impact was, 1%. And so really, I think it's about trying to find that right balance of getting as close to the truth as we can. And I think in discussion in the Rules and Policy, we felt like this policy as presented really gave us a really much better starting point for discussion when it comes to budget.
Good. Anything to add, Councilor Clucci?
I could do it during the discussion.
Okay, perfect. With that, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Councilor Hamel?
I had a question. So when I looked at the old formula, I said, yeah, well done. This one is a lot simpler. So that other one looked like, formula for rocket fuel or something. So, but how did you arrive at 90%? Was this a scientific process or just a guess?
We threw a dart, pure dart.
I can try. So, we thought about it a little bit, because we don't want to be too conservative and we don't want to be too optimistic either, right? I think it, might help to start with the old formula was basically a 10-year average. When you throw a reval in the middle, all of a sudden your 10-year average is a big number. And we're never going to grow that fast unless we reval every year. So over the past couple of years, we haven't used the formula due to the reval, but we tried the first year, just Tom came up with something and presented it. This year, we were a little more formal, where the assessor kind of did some work. We're always going to be wrong, but we still need to communicate the anticipated impact on the tax rate when we go through the budget process. So this just gives us, I think, a pretty realistic and reasonable way of saying this is what our valuation is going to be. If there's shifts in the regulatory environment or things that are included or not included in valuation, Tom can include that in his commentary when he presents the budget.
And I'll just add to that. So the town assessor showed us about the last 10 years of valuations, and we asked him what he was comfortable with. And then we went higher. So he was actually pretty uncomfortable with as high as we went with 90%. But one of the things we were trying to avoid was, for instance, the first year Don and I were on the council, I think the Beacon's valuation came in right under the wire, right? And so that moved the needle significantly. So this was actually our way of trying to get the estimated valuation higher so we have a more realistic picture. This would also eliminate our optimistic, medium, and conservative ranges, because that has been a communication nightmare. If you look at, for instance, I believe the Scarborough Leader ran with the highest rate, Right, so that will be no longer. There's gonna be one estimation. It was gonna be a pretty aggressive estimation with this formula. But we also made it clear the town manager, please remark on it, right? So if it's a year with not a lot of growth, remark on it, and if it's a year with a lot of growth, remark on it. But what this does is to me, communication too was an enormous factor of this policy, so.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation.
Counselor Katarina.
Yeah, so you sort of mentioned what Mr. Nick Cloutier, the
Yep,
tax
yep.
assessor, thought of it. Is he okay with it?
It's not his choice, but he's okay. I mean, he was there as, well, it's not. I mean, it's.
He's gotta work with
Well, no,
it.
well, he doesn't make it, no, he doesn't. I mean,
No.
yeah, right.
Okay,
I mean, that's kind of a flip answer, but I think, again, we took what he, I think he was something in the 80-85% range, and we, with the downs and everything, we just wanted to let it rip and be more aggressive, so.
So I think, yeah, and
Yep.
I think.
but
it's
he's
just-
okay with this.
Yeah, he's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's more about that starting point for conversation for budget, which again, as was mentioned, Tom or the town manager would have the ability to kind of give more
Right.
information at that time if they felt strongly that that was too optimistic or even too conservative potentially. And so I think we want to reserve that right, but we just want to know where we're starting when we have that conversation.
Just to be clear, this in no way binds, directs, controls what the assessor does. His job is independent.
Mhm.
This is a conversation that's happening 6 months before his work is complete. And so frankly, I don't think he has any ownership, doesn't want anything to do with this policy. This is for our purposes during the budget discussion.
And one other thing, just because it can be confusing, this is 90% of additional value from last year. So we're not taking 90% of the previous year's value. That would be silly, right? It's 90% of the previous year's growth.
Right.
Right. So the idea being, if we had $50 million in growth last year, this would be $45 million this year as a prediction. Any more discussion? No? Tony?
Counselor Pucci?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
It passes.
Thank you. Order number 21098 is an act on a recommendation to appoint Arthur Colvin of Eco Maine as a representative from Scarborough to serve on the Long Creek Watershed Management District Board of Directors. Mr. Hall?
Yes, the town back in 2009 entered into an interlocal agreement that still is in existence. This involves the towns, municipalities of Portland, Scarborough, South Portland, Westbrook, and Westbrook. And essentially, there's a governing board. Scarborough has 2 seats on that board. One is a municipal official. Our town engineer serves in that capacity. The other appointee of the council is, and I'll read from their bylaws, one whom shall be a public or private participating landowner or representative of a public or private participating landowner whose parcel is located within the town of Scarborough. The watershed of Long Creek just has a very small portion of kind of the eastern part of Scarborough that includes a portion of the Eco Maine landfill. And Arthur Colvin is the landfill operations manager. This is a appointment. I think they actually pay fees into this, and they have, I think they're an appropriate representative from the landowner's perspective. So Arthur will do nothing to represent our interests. We have our own appointee, but nonetheless, the council needs to appoint the landowner representative, and that's what's before you.
Can I get a motion? In a second?
Second.
Discussion? No, I think the only thing I'll add is Councilor Hamel, I think earlier today or yesterday, requested a brief bio of Mr. Colvin, and it was impressive, and kudos to Councilor Hamel for making sure we make an informed decision. So thank you. With that, Tony?
Counselor Pucci?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Thank you. Next is order number 21099. It is the act to authorize the town manager to convey to Governor Janet Mills to call for a special election for the vacant House District 27 seat as soon as possible. Tom or Tony or me?
Well, this was brought to our attention by the chair at
Yep.
the last meeting. I've been in contact with the Secretary of State's office, and as they're just waiting on action by this council. The letter is ready to go if approved, and this, I'm not sure when the date will be. The governor will, or the Secretary of State's office will be setting that date. And I know they are looking at the 1st of January, somewhere in the 1st of January. We have approximately 1,063 voters that it affects.
Yeah.
In Scarborough.
So the seat was currently vacated due to resignation. So about 1,000 people in Scarborough don't have representation right now. So it's, they called me directly and asked me to ask Tom to request of Governor Mills that we have a special election. It was really quite efficient. So,
And technically, the town of Gorham could have done this.
oh, I'm sorry, they called Jean Marie first. Yeah.
Technically,
My mistake.
The town of Gorham being another party to in that district could be the initiating community. Our meeting happens to be first this month, so it's in front of us. Time apparently is of the essence in their minds.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Tony?
Council Pucci?
Yes.
Council Anderson?
Yes.
Council Katarina?
Yes.
Council Johnson?
Yes.
Council Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Order number 21100 is the act on the request from the town clerk to certify the certify the results of the November 2nd, 2021 municipal election. Tony, I know you've had a long couple days. Would you like me to read the results?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Just realized I made you do all these roll calls on all these votes too with her. So here we go. Presented for certification by the town council are the election results from municipal elections that were held on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Town council, Don Hamel, 5,433 votes. Paul Johnson, 5,581 votes. Blanks, 4,675 votes.
Excuse me, I think it's 5,518 votes.
What'd I say?
81.
We'll go with 81.
Since it's your seat, I think it's important that you correct the record.
5,518 votes for Paul Johnson. Council one-year seat, 5,395 votes for April Seither, 2,418 votes blank. Board of Education, 4,294 votes for John Kelleher, 4,418 votes for Jenna Leong, 3,839 votes for Josh Brislow, 4,414 votes for Jillian Tarpinian Huff, 6,474 blank. Trustees for the Sanitary District, 5,636 votes for Nicola Rico, 5,569 votes for Michael Stein, 4,421 votes blank. Referendum question 1 regarding the fire truck, 4,898 votes yes, 2,456 votes no, 459 blank. Referendum question 2 regarding the turf and track field, 4,043 yes, 3,378 no, 392 blank. There.
I was just gonna make sure that you named the winners in each.
Yep,
of those races.
the winners of the 3-year town council seat are Don Hamel and Paul Johnson. The winners for the 1-year town council seat are April Seither. The winners for the 3 Board of Education seats are John Kelleher, Jenna Leong, and Jillian Tarpinian Huff. The 2 winners for the trustees for the Sanitary District are Nicola Rico and Michael Stein. The referendum for the fire truck passes with yeses, and the referendum for the turf and track field passes with the yeses. There are approximately 19,249 active voters on our voter registration list for the election. This does not include the same day registrations. There was 7,813 voters who cast ballots, of which 3,108 were absentee ballots. The percentage for voter turnout for this election was 40.5%. Pursuant to section 206 of the town charter, councilors elect shall be sworn to be faithful discharge of their duties by the town clerk or the town clerk's designee, and shall assume their duties at the commencement of the second meeting, whether regular, special, or emergency of the town council following the regular town election. Therefore, the newly elected officials will be sworn on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. And at this meeting, a new town council chair and vice chair will be elected. Pursuant to section 404 of the town charter, the members of the Board of Education shall be sworn in by the town clerk or the town clerk's designee upon certification of election by the town council and seated at the first Board of Education meeting after certification. The majority of the whole number of Board of Education shall be a quorum, and they shall elect their own chair. Every vote on the board shall require the affirmative vote of at least 4 members.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. With that, can I get a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second,
Any discussion? Councilor Clucci.
that's a great turnout for
Yeah.
this type of election. So thank you, Scarborough, for showing up.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, just want to state the obvious. The way this was run, it was smooth. I was there for 5 hours first thing in the morning, and it was not hectic, but steady stream, and everybody knew where they were going, what they had to do, and count that for Tody and her staff working. So another great job, Tody. Thank you very much.
Any others? With that, Tody?
Counselor Pucci?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Order number 101 is the act to authorize the town of Scarborough to join 2 national opioid settlements and to authorize the town manager to execute and manage the town's participation going forward. Tom?
Yes, 2 weeks ago or so, the town was contacted by the Attorney General's office. Actually, all municipalities in Maine, I think, received the same letter, making us aware of their active involvement with other attorneys general across the country in national opioid settlement discussions with certain pharmaceutical companies. We have the ability to actually enter in and be a party to this suit. It's a fairly low threshold and barrier. This is a class action. I don't anticipate any legal expense to the town. There's a registration component that, depending on your vote this evening, I think can be done within 10 or 15 minutes. So it's a very low threshold, I'll say. And I would just say that I think town of Scarborough has been a leader, certainly in the recovery side of this epidemic. And I think of anyone, we ought to be first in line to be at the municipal level to be sharing in some of the financial settlement as well. So I look for your support.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I did that for Tody. Votes unanimous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item number 9 is non-action items. There are no non-action items. Item number 10 is standing and special committee reports. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have liaison your hand if you have any standing or special committee reports. Councilor Clucci.
Just a reminder, we'll have a finance committee meeting next Wednesday, November 10th at 4 o'clock. The primary focus will be on the Higas Parkway TIF. And we'll also have some discussion about the recently received exemption requests from the Downs, particularly the financial numbers that are in there and how we might go about vetting or analyzing those.
Good. Any others? Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, the housing committee met and we've decided on, we're working on the workforce housing definition. We've decided that the upper threshold will be 120% of the gross median income, which more or less is around 120,000, believe it or not, but that's for a family of 4.
Yeah.
But we've still got to work on parameters and the issue is that, okay, so we can come up with this, but then again, what are the incentives for the developers and how are we going to get the state involved if need be and whatnot, but at least we're moving forward.
Yep.
So.
Good. Any others? Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, so we had a library board of trustees meeting this week to hear some findings from the company that they're using to help them plan for fundraising and things for the library expansion. And I believe at the next town council meeting, we might have a non-action item where the library will come and do a brief presentation potentially to share kind of where they are. I think things have changed a lot probably since they last briefed the council on this. And so I think again, it'll just be an opportunity to share a little bit with the council where they are in the library expansion project and what their plan is going forward.
Good. Any other liaison reports? No, I'll just reiterate, just for the last couple of weeks, Councilor Anderson was kind enough to take a lead on getting a bunch of feedback from all of us about a possible RFP to bring out to a consultant to help us navigate the next year, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. That was started as about a 15-page document. We had a relatively quick workshop on it. Tom was tasked with paring that down, so to speak, and getting a little more specific. Tom has done that. He's solicited feedback from, I know, myself, Don, and John Anderson, and we're all feeling pretty good about the RFP. To just give the public some idea, and we're going to actually include the recent Downs exemption with the RFP to give a very tangible artifact of the type of issues that are before us. Tom thinks we can probably turn around and start sending it to people by the end of the week. So you'll get the final product. I think it is important from here. This is Tom. It's an administrative thing. This is Tom going out for an RFP. This is his place. So we've given him all the feedback. I'm comfortable where it is. But just to update the public and everybody, we're in a good spot. If you guys want to see it, obviously we'll email it tomorrow. But there's been some good feedback, and it's about a third of the size it was. It's precise, says a lot of the same stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting some responses back. So that's
Just to be clear, council will control the award.
Yeah,
So
sure,
Once I
absolutely.
go through the process, I'll need you to authorize money and to,
Yeah. Yes, of
We're
course. Yeah,
fully
I just meant more of you're gonna be sending the RFP to people. But so that's the only thing I have. With that, anybody, council member comments? Councilor Katarina?
Yes, I want to thank the manager and people who are involved in the hiring of a new police chief. I'm looking forward to meeting Mr. Holmquist. I know who he is, but I don't think I've met him before. I think it'll be a great choice. I know that Scarborough is known throughout the state for having, a very forward-thinking police department. I mean, we've got a social worker, we've had Operation Hope, so we're even ahead of a lot of police departments in the United States, to be honest with you. So I'm hopeful that we can continue that tradition here in Scarborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clucci?
Yeah, I guess my only comment is I'd like to encourage the chair to share his comments about parking. Right, I know we kind of. I know that's happened to us in the past and it muted the discussion. Personally, I'd be curious to hear.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. I guess I'll add that to my notes. Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, I wanted to thank the voters of Scarborough for giving me an opportunity to serve again for the next 3 years. So I've sat through many kind of farewell speeches in my time in HR in various places, and there was one that was always a cadence of, it's a sad day, but it's a happy day. So I mean, it's a sad day for me because this is the last chair vice chair meeting of the comedy team of Johnson and Hamel. So I am going to miss that. It's been a great 3 years. It's gone, 2 years actually. It's the 3 years has gone very quickly as well. But it's a happy day because of the folks that we have to work. Congratulations to April for joining us, and I think that we will have a lot to accomplish together. So thank you.
You know what, Councilor Clucci, I forgot what I was going to say. So believe it or not, I sometimes operate on a whim. So I don't know. Quick story about the police chief. Months ago, I walked into Tom's office and I said to Colette, I said, "Who's that man over there?" And Colette said, "Oh, he's a banker." I said, "No, that's our next police chief." And it turns out I was correct just by the back of his head. So there you go. So that guy has police chief written all over him. So and I had never met him. So I called it. I just want to thank Tody. Tody, the first time I ever said Tody's name, I called her Toddy. So I'm sorry for that, Tody. But I know this is the time of year we pile it on for you, but it is really amazing. You're here tonight. I'm sure you're exhausted. So it's been, just thank you for everything that you do. To Don's point, Don, you make a great straight man in our comedy duo, right? So this is our last meeting as chair and vice chair. So I think that you and I have been through war together. We've been through all sorts of things. I have found a tremendous friend in you, a colleague, a mentor, and I have tremendous respect for everything, the energy that you've put in. And I have greatly appreciated it for the last 2 years. And I am looking forward to being at the end of the table and be able to quietly nod off once in a while if I have to. So With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Come on, guys.
Don't want it to end. All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
I saw Tom point it.